Is there any value in lifting lighter weight but more reps? Or is heavier weight the best way to build muscle and see more definition, to get tighter and toned? This is like the most talked about topic because there's so much out there now for women in perimenopause, women over 35 in general, that we need to be lifting heavier weights. And then there's a whole no, but lifting a ladder with higher reps is okay. It doesn't matter what reps you use, as long as you're going to quote unquote failure. But as you'll hear in today's episode, going a ladder with more reps is worse for most people, because if you don't understand what you need to be doing, like the actual things that drive the outcome, it doesn't matter what rep range you're aiming for, you're not going to get the outcome you want from it. Even the whole heavy weights doesn't work for me debate, that could also be worse if you don't understand what you need to do with that rep range. It's not about a magic number. It's not about a magic weight that you're lifting, and there's no magic starting point for what heavy is. I would also argue that if you don't build yourself up a foundation of bracing, I've spoken about this so many times, just put me on record, but of bracing, of knowing how to use your lats, of knowing how to use your feet, then it doesn't really matter anyway, because you're not going to be able to progress whatever you're doing to become gradually more challenging, which is one of the factors that drives results. What you're doing needs to be able to be progressed. There's also, what exercise are you doing? So there's this huge trend out there saying 3 times 12 is terrible, and that you should be doing 3 times 6 or 3 times 8. And then there's also that 15 is considered to just be endurance. But neither of those are true. This reel that said that 5 to 8 reps is considered the sweet spot or perfect. 10 to 12 reps is okay. And 15 reps is bad for building muscle. So let's start debunking that and going through some of these comments of a question that got asked, which was, if I lift 4 times a week, would I be better doing lighter weight but more reps? It doesn't really matter how many times you're lifting in a week. My answer to this question was no, it's worse, mostly because it feels way more effective. Higher reps do feel effective because it burns, it feels fatiguing, it's exhausting. Science proves that. Higher rep ranges are actually the ones that demand most recovery. It used to be believed that it was the heavy weights, it was the powerlifting style workouts that had a lot more fatigue. But no, it's doing a lot of higher rep sets, especially if you're using your rep ranges effectively. That is a huge systemic load on your body that it needs to recover from. And here is where it sets a lot of you back, which could lead to worse body composition outcomes, which is the last thing you would expect or want from something that feels like it's working. To be gaining more belly fat when you're supposed to be gaining more muscle, doing more because you're eating more, it kind of makes sense, right? You're eating more, so why not train more? Feed more muscle growth. It doesn't work that way, for one, but for two, what you're doing in the gym isn't actually building muscle either. Let me explain. The higher the rep range that you're aiming for, the less accurate you are on gauging failure, the less accurate you are on gauging effective reps, especially if you don't know how to judge whether that set is effective or not, especially if you don't have someone looking over it, especially if you don't film yourself, and filming yourself shows you a lot. My client added 10 kilos to her RDL in the space of 2 weeks. Why? I put the weights in there for her because of how fast the reps were moving. She said to me, I trust you, but it feels really hard. It doesn't matter what it feels like. It's not your best that you can do. You have more in the tank. So she increased the weight by 5 kilos the following week, and she did 4 more reps than she did with a lighter weight the prior week. She did 8 with 25, and this is just counting the plates, not the bar. 8 with 25. The following week, she did 10 with 30. The following week, she did 12 with 35. This week, she has 40 in there, and I'm pretty sure she nailed it. I'm pretty sure that I would say add more still, because they're moving pretty fast. And if your reps aren't slowing down, you're not lifting heavy enough. And again, the trap, which you would have heard in the prior podcast, it could feel like it's failing and you could have the reps slowing down but it still doesn't mean it's sending enough of the right stimulus to the muscles to grow, because there's so many other factors that come into performance, into strength. So if you haven't looked after all the outside factors, then we need to make sure that we are logging our weights in a notebook, filming your sets for yourself to look over. You don't have to send them to your coach all the time. If there's nothing to correct or nothing you're not sure of, you don't need to send them. But it doesn't mean don't film, doesn't mean don't look it over. It's so valuable to make sure that you are actually syncing your squats, regardless of whether it's on a machine or a dumbbell or whatever it is that you're using, a barbell, that you're hinging properly and that your shoulder blades are doing what they should in your back exercises, etc., etc. Because otherwise you're not really challenging the target muscle anyway. So this is where it's just like, it's about what the quality of what you're doing is and how it fits into the whole scheme of your workout. So there was another post that I will link into this particular part with the reps, because I'm going to talk sets and the best body part splits and the rest that you need to take between sets, because it's all tied together. There was a question. Why did I see more changes to my body when I was lifting lighter weights with higher reps and supersets over heavy weight and less reps with not many supersets? Now, number one, it sounds like there was a shit ton of volume in this, and that doesn't necessarily mean results. It just means a lot of muscle pump. So probably you're seeing that. Number two, is that because it was at the start of your journey and now you found out that you need to lift heavier and your progress is much slower because you're not a novice anymore? The way that I interpreted this is because she's doing way less volume in total over time, like less exercises, because there's not as many supersets. She's doing a more strength-based workout that's probably a more effective one. But is she applying how to use heavy weight and less reps properly? Which was then my response to some of the comments on this other post. One of the women on there said, I have a harder time lifting heavy weights. I usually do lighter weights with more reps. How was your approach to that? Are you working up to it for one? But number two, have you properly learned how to engage your whole body tension so that you can exude force through your whole body? Like I said, heavy weights doesn't have a particular number. So she might be thinking, okay, so if it's a lower rep number, then I need to grab these heavier weights. A huge mistake I see with people's programming is that they just switch programs over the months, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks even, or when they change their rep ranges, they change the exercises with them, which is never going to work. You want to learn how to lift heavier weights and get your brain learning it, because it's all about the brain. This is a neural connection thing. It needs to learn how to recruit the muscle fibers to be able to lift at that intensity. Most women go about it the wrong way because no one teaches you how. A lot of people out there don't even know how, because it's all weight loss this and weight loss that, because weight loss before and afters are what get clients. Tell me any other situation except when you are so sick of your own shit that you bought into a building muscle process for years, because building a physique takes a very long time. It's going to take having to keep a client for a while to see such amazing changes. Why do that when you can just do some 8-week shred and be like, hey, look what my clients did in 8 weeks? It does look like they built muscle and lost fat at the same time because they had the fat to lose and they had the muscle underneath, or it's their first time losing fat, which typically happens. But the more you repeat that, the worse you look over time, because you never actually put long enough into building muscle. So you just end up looking like a softer version of you. And then when perimenopause hits and hormones hit, then bye-bye. But to the topic, keeping the same exercises and working your way from like 10 to 15 reps, 8 to 12 reps, 6 to 10 reps, and learning how to challenge yourself on one of the sets, on how to push yourself, on how to actually, like I said in the last podcast too, get that level of arousal in the gym, get that level of connection. It's a skill, and it's not something you can buy. It's not something that just happens in a couple of months. It does take a long time, and that's okay. We are so impatient with it. And also we do have to keep in mind exercise selection. Like, are you going to do 6 to 8 reps on a leg extension? Well, yeah, maybe if you want to, but that would be better suited for the 8 to 12 rep range. If you do 6 to 8, cool. But if you have knee issues, but also it's an isolation exercise, tell me someone who's going to do an effective set of like 15 reps on squats. That is going to be a challenge. And deadlifts, that would be silly to put that amount of compounding sets onto your back. That's going to tax you for the rest of the session, and you won't be taking those reps
won't be effective for hypertrophy. These 1 rep max freaking hip thrusts and 3 rep max hip thrusts, like to me, it's stupid. Your lower back wasn't designed to really be in that position to have that much force in it, which is why so many women end up with like screwed up backs and then they blame deadlifts and, well, it's not that you blame deadlifts, it's that the industry does it. But if you are doing hip thrusts, that is max, like the glutes are optimized in the shortened position at the top. And most people that I see doing hip thrusts in the gym, they don't get the full squeeze at the top. They don't get the full effective hip thrust. So it's like, what's the whole point? Do glute hyperextensions. It's the same thing, but more effective because you're also getting it in the lengthened position if you're holding the weight down there because there's the load in the stretched position and it's against gravity. The load isn't fighting gravity when you're stretched in the bottom position of a hip thrust. So it doesn't matter how low you go, that's not really doing anything for your glutes. It's all about the top. It's all about the squeeze. Regardless, that's something that is probably more suited. It is more suited to the higher reps, etc. So with the rep ranges, it's not about the number, it's about how you use them. But the higher the rep range, the less likely you are to gauge your failure point unless you've been there many times the right way, resting a lot between sets, which we'll talk about at the end. I do want to touch on, just quickly, I already spoke about why, but there are a lot of women saying that Stacey Sims and all these other menopausal experts are saying the same thing too. And the reason I want to bring up Stacey Sims is because she is a great example of who not to listen to. Because she researches athletes. Athletes know how to use those rep ranges. If you're putting yourself under a barbell squat and you don't know how to squat and you're trying to squat heavy, like a lot of women who say that they get injured or their back gave out or whatever else it is because they tried to take the advice, it's what I just said. Like, it's not just a general prescription of that. There is a whole method to this madness. Like, yes, the whole science of calories in, calories out is so simple for fat loss. This is why getting leaner is that much harder. Because when it comes to training, that is the only thing that's going to change your body composition. I say it in every episode. Training is the only thing that does it. Training is the only thing that builds muscle. And the programming to that over time is very complex. First, it's not, because there's a novice gains that you can easily get bamboozled by and think that that's how progress is always meant to go. So it's easy to keep changing your programs. It's easy to be like, oh, well, this isn't working anymore. Let's change the exercise. Let's change the rep range. Why aren't my dumbbell presses going up anymore? It's because we need to look at the whole picture. Like, there's so much more to this. It's not a magical rep range. Okay, sets. There's this thing on 4 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets being shit. I don't know where 5 and 6 came from, but if you're a strength athlete or power athlete, you would probably have some sessions where you're doing 5 reps, 6 reps, 7 reps. It's not something where you're training to failure. It is for a skill component of learning a movement. You're probably doing 7 sets of 3. I remember when I had 7 sets of 3, when I had 10 sets of 5 for my squats because I was trying to relearn the patterning of it after not squatting for so long, which I don't barbell squat anymore. That'll be interesting to try again. But the whole, like, I hate this one where she says 4 sets sucks or is bad, 3 sets is decent or good, and 2 sets is perfect. No, 2 sets is not perfect for a lot of people. That is not enough volume for someone who is, well, you can see change from a lower volume dose when you're very new to the gym. But if you can't yet use those muscle fibers to lift heavy and make those 2 sets really damn effective, really damn count, and put the tension needed on the muscle, the time under tension needed on the muscle, and accumulate the volume that you need through the whole week to cross the threshold for growth. And don't forget, it's not a matter of you're either growing muscle or you're losing muscle. It's you still have to put in a lot of work to maintain muscle. Just like if you need to train like this to build muscle in a deficit, but you're not building muscle. You need to train that hard to maintain it because your body is doing everything it can to break it down. You're catabolic. A deficit is catabolic. Eating at maintenance, eating enough food is giving an anabolic environment because it is enough food. It may not be a surplus, but it is still giving at least enough calories for you to use them and do the work. That is where body recomp happens. You don't build muscle in a deficit. You're doing everything you can to keep it, unless you're a newbie or unless you have a lot of body fat to lose. That's something to keep in mind. Now, back to sets.
It depends on how you're using the sets. For one, if you're not doing warm-up sets, then 4 sets is probably amazing for you because it might be only the last 2 sets that actually count in that whole thing. If you're not getting yourself primed to make those 2 sets count, doing warm-up sets, arousing yourself for it, getting yourself into the groove of the movement, because warm-up sets aren't just to prime you for the load. It's to get the neural patterning. Like, okay, so I need to make sure that I feel this. So then those sets are effective. If you're not doing that, then you didn't really do any sets in the whole session because those 2 sets were still your warm-ups. So it depends on how you're approaching your session. I actually quite like 3 sets. I love 3 sets. Sometimes I love 4 because you can do 1 moderate set, 1 all-out set, and then 2 moderate sets. Or 1 moderate set and then 3 actual all-out sets. The moderate set is because a lot of the time, well, it depends on the person, because I know some clients that are like this, and depending on the exercise, I'm like this too. So I use this approach. The first set for me always sucks on some exercises. It's the second one that I feel like I can actually give my all, because it's almost like, okay, for a leg press as an example, I'll push a set and I'll be like, that felt like freaking ass. Don't tell me I have to drop the weight and I got weaker. Then I go for the second set and it moves so much better. So it depends on how you respond and what the load is. I typically find it is for my heavier load stuff, but I don't take the first set to that pushy point. I just love the 3 sets, but also the sets. It depends on how many times you're training through the week. If you're training 3 times in the week, then you're not going to get enough stimulus for that very muscle. You need to get enough stimulus on that muscle throughout the whole week. How many days you train, you're split. Like, all these things impact upon each other. So that's something to keep in mind. That splits. You want to make sure that you're training the muscles at least twice in the week. If you're doing 1 leg day, if you're doing a shoulder day, I don't know why. If you're doing an arms day, I don't know why. If you're doing some abs and core day, I don't friggin' know why. Like, the best splits are ones that do things like upper lower or push pull legs, as long as you're getting the legs twice. If you're doing push pull legs, then I would add on upper lower, or because that's like a 5-day training split, I would do push lower, pull lower, and split your volume that way. Otherwise, I would do an upper lower split. Or if you're training 3 days a week, you're better off doing a full body split for those 3 days. There's no best split there, as long as you're not doing just 1 muscle group on 1 day and not at all for the rest of the day. Or if you're hitting glutes every day, or if you're hitting legs every day. I usually argue that people that are doing full leg days 3 days a week aren't training them hard enough. I train my legs most days because I do a full body kind of variation on them all. Like yesterday, it was 1 leg, 1 lower body exercise, and mostly upper body. Because sometimes I have mostly lower body with some upper body. It kind of splits itself that way. So it depends on how you work your days through the week and what you're able to do, what you're most consistent with. Now, the rest between sets also depends on the exercise, depends on the exercise mostly. If it's an isolation exercise, you don't really need all that much rest. If you're doing a superset, and supersets are best done when they're 2 different muscle groups, you don't really need all that much rest in between. It's just to get your heart rate down. But if you're doing like compound exercise, rest long enough. You should not be resting less than 90 seconds if it's like a squat or a leg press or something that's really demanding of more muscle groups. Rest at least 90 seconds, but the trap is not resting enough between legs. That is the one that catches most people out. So I need to mention that now. Don't go rushing your sets. Even if you're someone who's not lifting quote unquote heavy yet, take your time, do your warm-up sets. And you don't need to lift the same amount of reps, the same weight every set. If you need to drop your weight because you're finding your form getting compromised, that is not saying anything bad about you. That is a good thing. That shows that you're putting in effort. If your reps drop off, that is a good sign if you're pushing yourself. So I hope this helps. If you have any other questions around training, let me know. I typically get asked, what are my go-to exercises? What are my opinions on things? Because of this whole S tier and A+ tier of exercises, best this, best that. So I might do a podcast on that soon, but I really want to dig into the misconceptions around body recomposition very soon, and this whole bulk and cut cycle. So if that's something you're interested in and you have questions, shoot me a message on Instagram. Details are in the description thingamabob, but it's transform X, like a times sign, transform X Ruby on Instagram and everywhere else. I would highly, highly, highly appreciate it if you rated this a 5 stars. It's the only way that it's going to get out to people. But more than anything, if you find an episode that anyone that you talk to, you're friends with, you feel could benefit from it, even if you don't rate this podcast, if you share them a link to that podcast episode, that would actually mean so much more to me, because I want this podcast to reach more women and help more women break free of the bullshit. The more people that we can share it to, the better. If you rate it, that's even better for me, because I really don't want to get ads on here. And I'm not going to sell my soul to anyone to do that. So I hope this helps. Don't listen to blanket statements. Don't get caught in this is best and that is best, because facts that could even be facts. What's the whole point if you don't understand the method or the actual, like the things that drive the results? You'll hear me on the next podcast, and bye. Love you all.